Sometimes in life we just suffer. Sometimes it's from being totally withdrawn, or so much stress that we are totally anxious, or so tired that we are totally burnt out. But our current position is not our final destination. No, indeed. There's hope. So whether it's your personal life, your career, your relationship, your business, or your job, we say there's reason to believe again. And we present from Andy's personal development, the breakout room. It's the place for health, happiness, and prosperity. Stay tuned for more. Our next guest in the breakout room is an international business success coach, chiropractor, podcaster, 3 times author, and speaker. He's also the founder of the Billionaire's Success Formula. He is known as Dr. Vic Manzo. This is our guest. He will help you to rediscover your greatness. He has written A Walk in the Dark and Decoding the Matrix. Unleash your potential and start your spiritual awakening. So, let's welcome this multifaceted influencer, Victor Manzo. So we are live in the breakout room and we are with Victor Manzo, better known as Vic. So we're going to call him Vic for this episode. Welcome. How are you doing today, sir? Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me on, brother. I'm excited to be here. It's a beautiful day. I'm alive. So every day
Wonderful.
I'm alive is a beautiful day.
It's a great start. So glad to hear that. Wonderful. So Vic, what we want to do is kind of go back with you as much as possible for you to tell us how it was growing up as a young man, your childhood days, these formulative years, which are the basic foundation for everybody on the planet. What was it like for you as a young man growing up?
Yeah, I grew up in a nice small Italian community outside of a suburb in Chicago called Melrose Park. And with the Italian culture and then also being raised Roman Italian Catholic, a lot of things that I was exposed to was, consistency. Like every Sunday we're at grandma's house having an Italian dinner. The whole family comes. It's not just my side of the family. It's like 18 of us. It's 15 to 18 of us, right? Every Sunday, never miss, no matter what's going on in your life, you're there. But there was also the rich routines of going to church every Sunday, right? If it was Saturday night or Sunday morning, and never missing, couldn't miss. I wasn't allowed to. So going through that process, there was all of that, but then there was the other side of things where I grew up in a community that was very blue collar. So my growing up had a lot of financial scarcity, right? Money wasn't abundant. And so one of the things that always puzzled me as a kid is I would look at what I had, and it wasn't much, but I made the best of what I had, whatever that was. If it was one video game, man, that was the video game my buddies and I would play every Friday night to when we were a little older, but to like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, that was the game we played every Friday, having pizza and doing that. So that was kind of the thing that was like that. But I had other family members and friends who had 50 video games to one. Right. Or all the video consults and things along that nature. And I couldn't understand why is it they had that, we didn't. I just understand the difference. Why one person suffers, why one doesn't. All those kind of things to kind of like sum up that process. And this was kind of it was at one point, since I couldn't understand it, my mind was filling in the gaps. And so my mind thought I wasn't good enough to have that.
Right.
I wasn't worthy enough to have. There's other things that led me to feel those feelings too. But And that was a construct in my mind that has taken me many years to realize that later on in my life, and then also to see how it showed up in different aspects of my life.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing, Vic. So tell us, how did you become involved in the practice of chiropractor or chiropractician? Because it is one of those rare alternative methods of medication that people seldom know about. Sometimes when you mention the word, they're like, what? How did it happen for you? What was that epiphany moment like for you? Was it an experience you had or something that you just accidentally step on? What was it like for you?
I never had a process to want to become a chiropractor. I never had a thought of doing that. I just I didn't even know. I mean, I went to a chiropractor for a little bit when I was a kid
Yeah.
for some issues, but then that resolved itself and I stopped going. But what turned me on into chiropractic, and I always say, in chiropractic, we say most time it finds you.
Yeah.
And it was a point in my life. I was 19 years old. So little story before that.
Sure.
My mom's a fitness and aerobic instructor, so she's always been into health. So I've always seen her working out. I've always seen her take supplements. I've seen her take juice. She juiced. She had smoothies. She's done this ever since I was a kid. And so she's been in the fitness world for 38 years now, still is. She's been under chiropractic care for about the same length of time.
Okay.
And so for my framework, what I learned was that health is really exercise and good nutrition. So that's what I thought it was. At 13, I started learning how to work out. At 16, I started self teaching myself nutrition, herbs, and things like that because I wanted to learn how to become as healthy as I could. 19 comes. I go away to school at Arizona State. And what started to happen was I was playing for the club team for rugby over there.
Yeah.
And what started to happen to me was every month I would have some weird stuff start to show up. To me, I call it weird. Like I get headaches. I don't normally get headaches. And I was getting
Okay.
headaches. A couple months later, I had acne all over my back. I had canker sores in my mouth, new ones every week, every
Wow.
7 to 10 days. Sensitivity to light, couldn't sleep. No matter, I was tired all the time, very sluggish. It didn't make sense. And after about 8, 9 months of this, here's a college kid who's can run 5-minute miles, who can lift double my weight. I'm eating pretty clean. I wouldn't say clean nowadays in my definition, but back then for a college kid, yeah, I was eating more clean than most college kids. I didn't drink much.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
so just to give a preference of how I was taking care of my health, I was taking more supplements just to try to aid and correct what was going on. Nothing was working. And I got scared. I started to talk to my mom about, hey, maybe I have a blood disorder or something. I'm not a doctor, but something's up. Took about a month to get to that for that appointment to be set up. 3 days before, my mom looks at me and says, why don't you go see Dr. Frank? And that was the chiropractor that I saw as a kid. She was seeing, and I'm like, you think he can help me? I'm like, I have all these things going on. That's not
Yeah.
how's that going to relate to my spine, right? Thinking like everyone else
Right.
does.
Yeah.
She's like, just go see. He'll probably have some answer for you. I said, all right, if you can get me in tomorrow, let's do it. And he was able to get me in tomorrow. And so long story short, my whole life changed. He showed what was wrong, what was going on. He told me that in 2 months, because I had 2 months before I went back to school. He's like, we can help you with the symptoms. He goes, you need chiropractic care for the rest of your life. And he's like, with that process, he goes, you're going to have to find someone when you go back to Arizona. Well, he didn't lie. 2 months later, all my symptoms were gone. I found a
Wow.
chiropractor in Arizona. 2 months later, here's why I decided to become a chiropractor. I started to get interested because I was kind of amazed by
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
that didn't sell me. What sold me was this. So I've been under care for 4 months now. I had 2 months with him and I had 2 months at another chiropractor in Arizona. I got down to 10% body fat. I got really in good physical shape. It wasn't like I wasn't in good physical shape, but I just wasn't like shredded. I didn't have like a 6-pack showing. I maybe had a 2-pack. I didn't feel really defined in my body. And it didn't make sense. I didn't understand. I'm working out really well. I can run. I can do all this conditioning. And my body
Yeah.
wasn't showing it like I thought it should. But 4 months later of chiropractic, I went down to 10% body fat. I didn't even try. It just
Yes.
happened.
Yeah.
And that I go, there's something to that. And I don't know what this is. I know there's more people way off worse than I am. I need to invest and look into what chiropractic is. And I literally changed my business, my degree of what I was going into. I went into business and I literally went back home and finished school in Chicago before I went to Dallas to finish up chiropractic school.
Yeah. Great. Interesting story. Thanks for sharing, Vic. So tell us about the thing that I think really defines you, the billionaire success formula. How did you reach at that crossroad? Because I know it's a dynamic part of your life. What led you to that fantastic formula that you call the billionaire's success formula? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is 15 years of accumulated experiences and studies and all the stuff that I've done. But long story short, there came a point when I came out of chiropractic school. I've already been studying a little bit of. I went into energy healing while I was in chiropractic. I didn't learn this at the school. I did this outside of it, but energy
Yeah,
healing. So when I wanted to learn the depth of healing, so I was like, let me
right,
learn energy healing. Well, I didn't realize I was going to learn consciousness, quantum physics, universal laws, and all this other stuff that blew my mind beyond what I was so excited to learn. But when I came out of school, I started to, I was studying, I already had a coach 6 months before I came out of school, and I was very ambitious. And then I also, I started studying I was listening to all the business world. What was the things to do? I already been studying the very successful chiropractors while I was in school. So when I came
right.
out, I was like, I need to now I'll still study chiropractors, but I need to start studying business people, I wanted to get into that. And you hear all the time and it's still to this day, 15 years ago, they said this, it's still the same message: grind, hustle, sweat equity, sacrifice, get less sleep. That's going to make you successful, right? It's the
Wow.
same. It has not changed. You hear motivational
Hasn't
speakers
changed.
saying it
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time. I
yeah.
heard Arnold Schwarzenegger one time on a video say, sleep less. And if you don't know, sleep faster. I'm like, this is the advice we're giving to people.
Wow.
You understand, I get frustrated with that
Yeah,
from a
yeah.
health perspective. Then
Right.
there's also the mindset perspective. But long story short, so I took this all on and I started doing everything that they told me. And my business grew snail effect. It was little at a time. Now, I was growing though. If you looked at like the first year, whatever this was, and then I doubled that the next year and I doubled that the following year. So you would say, wow, you're doing really well. Well, I
Yeah.
was in that framework of a business, but I had so much personal expenses with student
Right.
loans and everything else
Right. Yeah.
and I put everything on a credit card to start my business. I was just so determined. The debt of that I was in, even with all the growth I had in the business, was not meeting end to end. It wasn't getting me to zero. I
Okay.
was still bleeding every month. I was in the red. And so what happened is, there comes a point in your life where I'm just like getting frustrated. I'm trying to make things work and so forth. And I'll never forget this. I share this story not too often, but it's one of the things where when you hit rock bottom, you thought you hit rock bottom. I'll never forget this day. It was my grandfather's wake, and I come home and I ended up staying at my parents' house for the weekend, just because I was like, I'm going to do everything in town there, so I'll just do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I wake up Sunday morning for the wake, and my car was gone,
Wow.
totally gone. Like it's a winter time in Chicago, so you got the
Uh-huh.
snow on the trees all over the place, right? And you can see there's tire marks, and it's just they're just gone. And so at first I'm like, did I drive? Maybe someone dropped me off. I think maybe someone dropped
Wow.
me off. Now I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
I don't really have a lot of sleep because when my grandfather passed, he passed like at 3 a.m. So I got woken up. I only slept a couple hours, and then the next day I didn't sleep much either. So I'm a little not sleeping much, and I'm like, maybe it was that. And I'm like, no, I drove. I saw the keys. I'm like, nope, I drove. So things are playing around in my mind.
In your mind. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because now it's like, hold on, what happened? We have family members who are police officers in town. My dad reached out to them and said, hey, my son may have had his car stolen. Can you just look into it?
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, you got a wake to worry about. We'll figure it out. So I didn't find any. Next day after the funeral, I finally was on a call and I found out they told us that the car actually got repoed. And I'm going, repoed? I'm like, how did this possible? I'm
Oh,
making payments. I don't get this.
wow.
Now I'm like, I feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone because I'm like, is someone playing a prank? Is there like a camera somewhere? Like this is where, because you gotta understand, before that, every month I've been struggling and I've been doing everything in my power to try to get to a certain point. And I'm hitting a wall every single time. There's always, when I think I'm about to have a breakthrough, something hits me, right? So this was
Yeah.
big. So I'm on the call with the company, and long story short, they're like, yeah, you haven't made a payment in 4 months. I'm going, did you guys email me? Did you call me? I go, why didn't I get any notifications on this? I go, everything's on autopilot with my bank. I don't understand. So long story short, I started to go, I made a stupid mistake. I accidentally took off the auto payment for that, and I thought it was for something else.
Oh, wow.
And for some reason, now get this, you want to talk
Wow.
about
Wow.
everything working out
Yeah.
like it's supposed
Yeah.
to?
Yeah.
They didn't have my email address, which they should
Mm-hmm.
have. I don't know why they didn't. They didn't have my phone number, but they had my parents' address because that's where the car was registered at.
Right. Right.
Because what happened was the night, it was Saturday night, I left it there. Sunday morning, it's gone. And they told me, I was like, well, listen, I had a little savings left. So I said, listen, I will pay you the 4 months and I'll pay 4 months ahead. I go, I apologize. I'll use up my savings. I'm like, I'll do it. They're like, no, sir. Once we do this, you're done. That's it. You're $17,000 today. I said, well, I
Wow.
can't pay that.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
came a point with all the accumulation of debt I had, just kept compounding every month. Plus that, I was done. And so this is where then I had to depend on other things. I ended up going bankrupt. I didn't want to do that. But I had two choices: either go bankrupt and keep the business and go all in and do all that I can with it, or let go of the business, go work for someone and pay off the debt for a couple of years. I'd
Yeah.
rather take the hit and ruin my credit for 7 to 10 years and never be able to get a perfect score again now, because that's how committed I was to the business. And
Okay.
long story short, it worked out. In the long run, it all worked out. But what happened is I started to look back now and say, why did this all happen? What was I
Mm.
missing? Right. So
Yeah.
now I'm asking different questions, which are going to give me different answers and different perspectives. And I started to realize that I was so focused on how I wasn't making ends meet. I was so focused on I wasn't making enough money. Right. I was so focused. Also, limiting belief showed up that I wasn't worth that success anyhow.
Yeah.
That I had to go through that work. And then what I started to do is say, forget all the business advice. I was like, I'm done. After a few more years, my business grew. I hit a financial peak, right? But the development of the formula didn't happen until after that. Because when I
Okay.
got to the money, I thought I was going to be successful and like was making more money than I ever thought, close to 7 figures. What ended up happening was, as I got a point in my life where I sat there and I was unfulfilled, I was burned out every 4 to 6 months, and I was unsatisfied with where I was. I even thought about walking away. Everything I went through, that bankruptcy and all that stuff a couple years back, right? I got to this pinnacle peak of my career, and I'm looking about walking away because I just was so unfulfilled. And that was the point in my life where the formula started to give birth. Now, I didn't create it back then, but it was
Okay.
the testing of it. Because what
Yeah.
happened is now I said, forget what business people say. I'm tired of listening to their advice. Yeah, it got me financially successful, but it cost me all these other things. Instead, I'm going to do the opposite of what they tell me. Let me see what happens. I know mindset already. I know neuroscience. I know neurolinguistic programming. I know limiting beliefs. I understand the subconscious mind. This is some of the studies I've been already exposed to and been doing. I added that with my quantum physics, consciousness, all that stuff, right? And I said, everything is energy and mind first. Then it's action. I'm doing this all backwards. And so I literally took that approach and I tested it. I took a hit on my practice because it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I decided to take a 40% hit. It just ended up being that number in 6 months. So we took a hit, 40% financial hit on purpose. And my wife and I, because she worked in the office with me, what we decided to do then is we changed the way we ran the practice, and we did it the way we wanted to do it. And we chose what success meant to us rather than what anyone else said.
Yeah.
And within over a year later, we were back at where we were. I was working 50% less than I was before. I never had burnout again. And at the same token, I never had to worry about my business ever going up or down or whatever, because I understood the dance of life and I understood that what I controlled was me at the end of the day. That's when the birth of the formula happened. Because once I figured that out, I tested out it a couple more times. And then I started getting into the coaching realm, and that's when I started to use it. But I wasn't calling it that yet, but I was using that principle. You focus on your mind and your vibe first, and then you worry about the actions after.
Okay.
Actions, you're always going to, when you get the mind and the vibe right, and I can break those down a little bit, but when you get those correct and you get it right properly, inspired action is going to come. You're going to want to take action. You cannot ignore the feelings of wanting to take action, and it's going to propel you and inspire you to where you need to go. And when you
Yeah.
do those things accordingly,
Uh-huh.
success follows.
Wow. Great story there, Vic. Thanks for sharing. It leaves me to look at a very practical issue. There's a saying that experience is the best teacher. And some folks even say, well, somebody else's experience you can learn from. What I want to look at based on your success, when you deal with folks and you coach them and stuff, and you give them the information based on your formula, do you teach them to avoid making some of the mistakes that you did? Or do you just give them the formula and let them run with it? How is your method add up with regards to how you implement the formula?
It's kind of a mix, but if I know I can
Uh
give
huh.
them some advice to kind of curb a mistake or don't go that route because this is what I've experienced,
Yeah.
then I will share that. And
Okay.
because I want the purpose of coaching and working with me is to learn from my mistakes, right? That's one of the
Yes.
reasons.
Yeah.
Learn from
Yeah.
all the experiences I had so I
Yeah.
can shorten your gap so that you can get to the level of success faster than what it took me. That's kind
Right.
of the methodology behind it. Um, but I can't, but then again, there's something like I wouldn't have somebody go through something unless, like, I had a client I was just talking to, and it's one of those things where they're going through something right now. It's kind of a struggle. And I take a position where I'm not going to literally tell you every step of what you need to do. What I will do is get your mind right, your nervous system right, to give you the
Yeah.
best possibility to see things as clear as you possibly can, so
Right.
you can make a
Right.
choice that's going to be the closest it can be to who you want to be, with the experiences you
Okay.
want to have.
Okay.
And that's
Great.
kind of the role in my coaching that I do. Because let's face it, in the coaching world, what inspired me to become a coach and what I really wanted to was, besides what I just shared my story, the other thing, there's just so many people telling people what to think rather than how to think. I don't want to
Yes.
be another coach just telling you what to think. Here's the steps, do this. Here's that, do this. I don't need that. Now with like
Okay.
AI technology, you could go find out what to think so easily. Go on Chat
Yeah.
GPT. Yeah, they'll tell you
Amazing.
everything on what to think. Amazing stuff, right?
Amazing. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not going to teach you how to think. And
Right.
that's the principles of what I work on, is teaching my clients how to think, how to work through these things. Because let's face it, we're going to have
Yeah.
ups and downs. We're always going to have storms. They're
That's
never going to
right.
go away.
Yeah.
We are part of nature. We live in nature. We live on the earth. We don't live with it, but that's a whole nother discussion. But nature, right? Nature has storms. There's sunny days or not sunny days. There's cloudy days. There's rainy days. There's really nasty days.
Yeah.
That's part of life.
Yep.
How to navigate
How
through
do you
that is
manage?
what's going to allow us
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. So thanks for sharing, Vic. Let's look at the publications for a little bit, and I want you to kind of, and this is an ironic statement, the decoding the matrix. Just kind of break it down for us. It's a very interesting and intriguing publication. Tell us about it.
Yeah, decoding the matrix is really, there's the matrix. You can choose another term called human collective consciousness.
Okay.
And so that is, for those who may not know what I'm talking about, this is the average of every single human being's thoughts, emotions, and where they put their focus at. Okay.
Right.
And that creates a vibration or a
Yeah.
consciousness level. And so when you average them all out, it allows humanity to have an experience. So we went through COVID. Well, the vibration had to exist of
Mm-hmm.
something to fear,
Yeah.
worrying about whatever may be in the collective to allow it to affect globally. But the matrix, not only globally, we also have sub-matrices, United
Yeah.
States or continents. Then you have United States, you have like, Italy, Australia, different countries. And it gets all the way down to the smallest micro fragment of it, which is you and me and every other single
Yeah.
human being.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So when we look at this, what ends up happening is the matrix is designed from the law of association. We've all heard this term, where you've heard in the business world, at least, or self-help, where like the 5 closest people to you, you average them out, that's you. Or in financially, the incomes of the 5 closest people to you, average them out, and that's what you make.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's called the law of association. So what happens is the matrix works on that level. It's going to pull you back into the matrix. And if you don't take intentionally your day, every single day, choosing your vibe, the matrix is going to pull you in to have the experience of like everybody else. So
Right.
like in the business world, right? They're talking about recessions and a global recession, and we're going to, the dollar is going to collapse, all these different things, or whatever it may be. If you don't set your intention, you will be taken into the wrath of that. Just like when the pandemic hit and lockdowns happened in the United States and across the world too, small businesses were getting smashed. They were getting tanked.
Yeah.
Some were
Yeah.
closing and never opened back up, right?
That's right. That's right.
But how did billionaires get a 56% growth in their net profit, net worth,
Ah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
And some people say, well, they have control metrics. I'm like, I won't get into that. Although we can have a conversation, but I won't get into it. But here's another example now. Let's not use the pandemic. Let's use the Great Depression. You know that the Great Depression in the United States created the most millionaires ever in the history of time that the United States ever existed.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is where the matrix can play a role on you. And you can hint, again, you become part of the storm. You're not in control of your life, in other words.
Right.
You're letting the matrix pull you into it, and you're going to have the same experience like everybody else. Or you choose what your experience is going to be. Setting your intention, having a vision, going back to the formula, mind and vibe. We get there, then you're dictating your experience of what it is going to be for you rather than getting pulled into the wrath.
Great. Great. Thank you so much, Vic. Take us through a walk in the dark.
Yeah, this book was my goal on the book was to end mental suffering. Give If I can get
Okay.
shift people's perspective from what I share in that book, it will literally end mental suffering because what it is all about is that we all have to face darkness. I was saying nature always has storms. Well, this is part of it. Darkness is you can call it your challenges, your obstacles, the hard times we go through in life, whatever that. It's all the same thing. It's darkness at the end of the day. And a lot of times humans, we fear the dark, right? We don't like uncertainty. Look
Yeah.
at the pandemic. One of the things that, as much as many people died, and that is sad to see that happen. But there's always, like there's a book called "There's No Mud, There's No Lotus Flower." No mud, no lotus flower, no mud. Anyhow, it's by I'm gonna mess up the person's name, but a Buddhist monk. But long story short,
Yeah.
you got to have mud in order to grow a flower, right? So anytime there's something bad, there's always something good coming from it too.
Right.
And one of those things is that people had to face uncertainty. They had to learn to live with it. You couldn't hide from it anymore. But the walk in the dark gives you ways to see the darkness as something that's going to teach you something that no one else can teach you. You talk
Right.
about how experience is the mother of all knowledge and learning. And it's one of the things where I want you to understand that, like, they give the listeners a visualization in a sense. Imagine you ever had a candle and you're holding a candle in a well-lit
Mm-hmm.
room. You
Yeah.
can't really notice how well the candle's, the power of it, right? But you ever take a candle when the lights are out and it's pitch black? One
Mm.
candle flame, you notice how it can light up almost a whole room? I mean, you're not
Yeah.
bright, but you can see everything.
Right.
The darkness takes us on a journey back within us. And if you sit with it and if you don't run away from it, it will teach you things about you that you need to know at that moment to evolve as a human being, to go to whatever that is that you want to destine yourself to. So
Right.
the darkness is always giving us gifts. It's always there for the good, no matter what it is. I know I have some people go, well, but look at all the bad things that happened to me. I say, listen, I am sorry you had to go through that, but I'm also knowing that if you know what I know, that there's a blessing in that. And
Right.
I've interviewed people on my own podcast where we talked about many traumas, sexual, physical, emotional, all, you name it. At the end of the podcast, I always ask the question when that came up,
Mm-hmm.
do you look back at now at your trauma as something of a blessing, as something that helped you in your life, or do you look at it still as something that holds you back and it's, this and that? I
Yeah.
still have yet a person to tell me that it isn't a blessing or wasn't something I could see as good now. I didn't see
Okay.
it. They'll say I didn't see it in the moment. And yeah, I
Yeah.
went down a dark path. But when I came out of it, I started to see why that was there and what it can teach me and how I can evolve and grow. So the walk in the dark allows the individual, see, if you can just shift your mindset, you won't be afraid of the darkness and know it's going to teach you. It's not going to be fun. I don't enjoy going through it. I don't know any human that does.
Yeah.
But I know, though, when I'm through it, going in it, and when I'm deep into that, I know good's coming out of it. I know whatever's going to be on the other side of that is going to be more magical and be worth every ounce of whatever it is that I'm going through to get to that point. And that's what keeps me moving forward, regardless what I face in my life, whether it was in the past, in the future, now, or even into the future.
Yeah. Great. I'm gonna give you a toot for that, Vic. Man, that sounds great. That really sounds great. So here's the thing. I just want to share a short video with you and get your comments. All right. So stand by for this.
Tired of not having enough money in business, life, and so forth? Try this. So what if you let all that go? Because when we don't have enough money, our mind's focusing on lack. And we start looking at our bank account. We look at maybe how much we need to make, what we have to do to make ends meet. And we're always focusing on these limitations and scarcity and so forth. How can you experience abundance, or how can you experience more of what it is that you want to achieve, instead of when you're always focusing on the limitations, when you're always focusing on the debt, when you're always focusing on how you don't have enough, right? I can't afford this. I can't afford that. These are terms that you use that are actually putting you deeper in a hole. I'm telling you to let it go and forget it, because you let go of the charge and the energy you put to that. And instead, focus on who you want to become and why is it highly important for you. Why do you want to be who you want to become? And forget about being successful with money. Just who do you want to be? Who's that person? And why is that critically important? If you want to learn how to master this and so much more, put in the comments mindset.
Yeah,
Oh, who
great.
is that guy? He had a beard. What was that?
I like that. I like that. Vic, that was deep, man. That seemed to be coming from a place of passion. Tell us about that.
Well, you kind of heard my story a little bit, right? And you heard
Yeah.
what I went through, and that's literally it. Where I
Right.
have experience in there, and I also have the science behind the back up
Right.
the whole
Right.
concept. But it's
Yeah.
like here. I'll share a quick little something about it. Matthew McConaughey, he went back to New Orleans one time, back to see his hometown and everything. And the story he shares, he goes, it always fascinates me. He goes, I love going to the voodoo shops. And he goes, he kind of shares the voodoo shop and how they have all these potions and what uses for what. He goes, but it always fascinates me. You know, they have love and all these other ones, but money's always empty.
Ah.
The shelf's always empty for money. And he goes, but yet people don't have it. And I love it because what he's sharing there is literally what I'm sharing in that video. And what I'm talking about is that we focus, like we get so much caught up into the elements of, well, I don't have enough. I
Yeah.
can't afford this, right? I said all these things to I don't use those words anymore. I just say, I changed it around and said, if I can't afford something, like if I want to get a Bentley, I can't afford it. No, I don't can't afford it. I just choose that I don't want to, I'm at this time in my life, I don't see the value of buying that,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because I have other needs that need to be met. So
That's
I don't
right.
see the value in buying that because that's more accurate of a statement. Because when you say I can't afford something, that means you'll never be able to afford it. You can
Yeah.
see that's a trap in itself.
That's
The other
right.
thing is the charge, right? So we're so stuck on the money and the lack and the scarcity of it all. Your mind, wherever your mind goes, wherever your focus goes, energy is going to flow. And wherever
Yes.
energy flows, manifestation is going to grow. So if
Yep.
you're focusing on scarcity, if you're focusing on that lack, I don't have enough, I'm not making ends meet, or this is happening in my life, or I have a bad relationship, or I don't, because it's not just money, you're going to experience more of it. And what's interesting too is when I talk to some clients, I always have to correct them because I'll say they want to make, let's say, 30,000 a month. I said, why 30,000? What, because I'm always curious where that number comes from.
Yeah.
Oh, if at 30,000, I can get out of debt. I can do this, this, and this, right? Notice what was the first thing they said? Debt. So I look at them and say, you'll never be out of debt if you think that way. Well, how dare
Yeah.
you say something like that? I'm like, well, here's the thing. What's the first thing you say you're going to focus on? Well, paying off my debt. If you put focus and mind to everything, wherever mind goes, energy is going to flow.
Energy. Right.
Then all of a sudden you're going to constantly have debt show up. How do
Yeah.
I know this? Well, I've experienced it myself. I
Right.
doubled after I went through bankruptcy. That next year, I doubled almost. I grew my practice like 60 some percent. And then the next year I grew another like 30%. And I was like, man, I should have all this money in the bank account. Right. So I go to look, it's not there. And I'm going, where the heck's them? I should have, I'm thinking of all the disposable income in my head, just thinking of my numbers. And I'm going, no, there should be at least $80,000, $100,000. There's just no way. And it's not there. And I'm sitting there going, oh crap. That's right. I was worried about so much at the time. I was focusing on what? I was focusing on getting out of debt and paying off bills so that I can have more cash flow monthly. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, I created debts on other levels. I remember when I really quantum leaped my business. I think I was so excited how much I was making. And then yet, get this, right? I was still focusing on paying off debt. I had a tax bill come in that I had to pay like 100 and some odd thousand. I sit there and I go, come on, man, 100? Are you kidding me? I was like, because I didn't pay I paid all my taxes at the end of the year. And I wouldn't get a report for like 3-4 months after. And I looked at them like, dang it, I'm paying that. Plus now I'm paying quarterly because I was like, I'm tired of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then from that moment, I realized, okay, forget it. How much do I want to make? And how much do I want to see in the bank account, right? I shifted my focus to what do I want to have rather than what am I trying to pay off or anything like that.
Right.
And it
Right.
became a game
Right.
changer. So that's kind of the thing. You have to let go of that charge and just focus on what does you want to create, what do you want to have, and so much more.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Vic. Tell us a bit about the podcast and how did you arrive at the point of deciding I need to go on social media on a platform and do the podcast? What prompted you to get to that place?
At the point, it was 2017, and I had a podcast in 2012, 2013. It was called
Hmm.
Wellness Smart Radio. I probably did about
Okay.
104 episodes.
Right.
And there came a point where I kind of got away because I'm like, everyone's talking. There's a lot of people who talk about health. I don't need to be another person in that.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel that. I rather focus my health on my community and educate them rather than go on a platform where I'm speaking to the nation or the world. But in 2017, I started being like, I want to get back to a mindset, spiritual type podcast. I was really
Hmm.
passionate about creating one. And I started getting the feeling after 2017, after everything that I was going through. By 2018, I started to tell my wife, I'm like, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to get into a mindset podcast. I want to do spirituality, but I didn't feel like that would resonate well with the business world. So I was like, I want to change the verbiage around a little bit. I didn't know I was going to name it. And then eventually, when I was getting ready to launch, I started thinking about I'm like the mindset, the mindful, I'm like the mind experiment. That doesn't sound cool. The life experiment. That doesn't sound cool. But I'm like, I want it to be the experiment of life, because that's what I wanted to share. And then I'm like, the mindful experiment just came to me, and I'm like, the mindful experiment, right? We have a lot of things on the mind. There's mindful techniques. There's mind stuff that we can get into. It's the experiment of life. Nobody has life figured out. We're all learning as we go. And I was like, then I started seeing, I had a vision with it. I was like, I'm going to interview people who talk on all aspects of life. So this is not going to be like a niche type of podcast. The niche is the mind and life, but
That's right.
what I bring to people, what I bring is going to be a vast diversity.
Yeah.
And that's what it became. But at first, it was the first 42 episodes was me. And then I was like, I want to interview people that I'll never meet or hard to meet, right? And I want to just pick their brain. And that's when I got a little selfish. And literally, that's one of the reasons why I created it. And that's when I started interviewing people. And that's kind of the journey of what the podcast has come about and has been since 2018.
Yeah, wonderful. So I just want to share one more video with you and get your feedback. So stand by for this one.
So the first thing that I would recommend when it comes to a startup, one of the things that is so not focused on a lot, like we don't really speak on it. Like if I ask you if you're a new startup or if you've been in practice for a couple of years, what do you do? How do you want to get to the next level? I'm like, what do you want? Well, I want to double my practice. Okay. So what does that take? Well, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do marketing. I got to do this. I got to do my social media posts. I got to do this. I got to get reviews. I got to get referrals. I got to ask for them. I got to do workshops. I got to go meet in the chamber. I got to go to the business association. We have all this stuff. Notice that the whole focus was about you doing, not being. The whole focus was exerting energy, effort, hard work, and all that. So the number one thing is you have to have a vision of what your office is. What is it that your office serves? More importantly, who are you as a chiropractor? How do you define yourself as a chiropractor? How do you define chiropractic? Not by what an association says.
The thing about it is that although your focus may have been in the end on a chiropractor, it's important that the principle of how you begin a business is what rings out to me there. And I understand that, but there's so many people out there that are struggling, Vic. They need that information. And this kind of points in that direction. So just comment a little bit on what you said about what they need to focus on so that they can have some level of success.
The biggest thing you have to focus on, and this comes into the equation on the vibration side, is vision, because vision sets the tone for everything.
Right.
The way our neurology works, the way the brain works, it doesn't know the difference between what you're seeing in your physical world and the story you're telling yourself about what you're experiencing right now,
Right.
versus what you put in your mind and what you want to experience there. Why not use that to your advantage? But you have to have clarity in your vision of who you want to become, whether it's a chiropractor, whether it's an insurance agent, whether it's a real estate agent, whether if it's a podcaster, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, how do you define that? How do you define a successful podcaster or a chiropractor or a spiritual? It doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter. But you have to define it in the terms that matter to you, rather than letting the matrix condition you to what it should be, right? Because if I showed you two individuals, we'll just use as an example how most of us are all conditioned. If I had person A who's in jeans and a flannel, and I have person B who's driving an old pickup truck, and if I had person B who's in a business suit or business, some sort of business suit, and they're driving, let's say, a Lamborghini, who's the more successful one? We're all going with it. Even when I think about this, I go that way too.
Yeah. Right.
Now, probably the higher chances, it's probably going to be the person more dressed up in the nice car. Not always, but you have to define what that success looks like for you. You have to have that vision of what you want to become and why you're doing what you're doing. Because a lot of times when I work with people, they don't have a vision. When I was in business school, we heard of something called a vision statement, but it was really the mission statement that was like, this is what we want to stand for. And it goes against a lot of old, like, scripture, ancient wisdom, like Proverbs 29 verse 18 in the Bible states, people without a vision will perish.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of important, right? The
Yes.
other thing about vision is all billionaires. The reason why I call my formula the billionaire success formula, somebody asked me, like, does this help you become a billionaire? I said, it can. I go, there's no guarantee, but it can if you
Yeah.
want to go
Yeah.
that route. And I
Yeah.
said, but the real reason why it's called a billionaire success formula is because I studied so many billionaires. This is what they do.
Right.
I'm not saying all of them do this. I think some of them do it unconsciously, but the ones that I've gone around, read, heard their life story and so forth, they all have vision. Jeff
Yes.
Bezos, an example with Amazon, he comes out
Mm-hmm.
of a meeting. They had a quarterly meeting. So the reporter's like, hey, Jeff, great job with Amazon. You had 14% growth in the last quarter. That's absolutely amazing. Just like, I don't even know what we did last quarter. And the reporter looks at him going, wait a minute, you were just in a quarterly meeting. He goes, yeah, our quarterly meeting from 3 years from now.
Oh, wow.
And so
Yes.
that's the perspective. And when I work on vision, I'm like, you have to also define, just to take it one step further,
Mm-hmm.
you have to define why you exist. What's your vision
Yeah.
of your life?
Yeah.
And why do you exist? If you don't
Exactly.
define any of those things first, everything else doesn't matter. Yeah, you can make a lot of money, but again, I'm more for the fulfilling side of things of life. Money's great. It gives me a lot of opportunities, makes life a little easier, or I can buy more things and have more experiences with it. But you don't need it either. I mean, I tell people that too, and they're like, "That's not true. You can't pay your bills." Like, look at Mother Teresa. She got flown around in private jets and everything else, and she got to enjoy the
Uh,
grand beauty of life, and she had no money. So I'm like,
Fine
this,
example.
right?
Yeah.
So it's all about the
Yeah.
vibe and energy and coming from that vision of what it is you want. So it's really critical.
Yeah. Great. So, Vic, we have had a great show. We're coming to the end, and I just want to do a bit of house cleaning. So I'm gonna just show off myself here a little bit, and we're gonna get back to our conversation shortly. At Andy's Personal Development, you get the added advantage of 23 years of business experience. Our core competencies include life and personal development coaching, either individually or for your team. With me at the helm, you get someone that is internationally accredited, as well as internationally recognized and awarded. So whether it's a conference, seminar, workshop, or a retreat, we will write your speech and execute it with precision and value to influence your audience and deliver your core message. We specialize in leadership, communication, and teamwork. In the end, everyone is happy. So, call us today at 868-290-2395 or send us an email at lovebitsa@gmail.com or visit our website at www.andyspersonaldevelopment.com. We thank you in advance for making contact with us as we seek to become your partner in health, happiness, and prosperity. See you soon. Bye for now. Okay, so that was my turn, and now it's Vic's turn. So, Vix, you're gonna share with the people your social hashtag handles. Tell them where they can get your publications. If they need to make contact with you, they want your professional services, your coaching, they want to get more on the Billionaire Success Formula, how they can make contact with you.
Yeah, my hub's my website, and that's going to be www.empoweryourreality.com. You can find everything there. If you like what I talk about, you want to learn about the Billionaire Success Formula and really creating that success for you, I have a little tab up there, and you can scroll through the website. There's tons of tabs to set up a call. You fill out a survey first, and then we set up a call with that. My social media is on the bottom left of my website. All my handles are Dr. Vic Manzo. I think LinkedIn is Dr. Manzo. You can find my podcast on there. And then my books are, you can get my book on my website, but you can also find them on Amazon. All of them are available and 44 online stores. So
Okay. Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing. So it would be remiss of me if I did not make a shout out to all the people that observe Valentine's Day, man. This is one of those historic days in the earthly calendar that we pay special attention to. I have one comment from Margaret Woodruff. She says, "Congratulations to you, Andy. Thank you so much, Margaret. I appreciate that, and thanks for Vic for having us put on a wonderful show." But we are saying a shout out to the people on Valentine's Day. I always say, when you find true love, it's a miracle. But when true love finds you, it's like a destiny being fulfilled. So, congratulations and a round of applause on those who find true love on Valentine's Day. Okay, great. Wonderful, wonderful. So, it has been a pleasure having Vic in the house. Dr. Vic Manzo Jr. is his full name. And we thank him for all the information that he has shared with us and also all the content that has been so valuable for many people to just hold on to in terms of how you can do business, how you can get out of the negative mindset, take away the limiting beliefs, and become truly successful. So the last word is yours, Vic. If you had a megaphone and you had 8 point something billion people, you had one statement to make that would make a difference in their lives, something you just need to get out, what would you say to them?
I think what I would leave is this, and that is anytime you let fear consume you, anytime you give in to fear, what you really are not doing is trusting yourself. And if you want to take it even further, you're not trusting God, universe, Allah, whatever higher power, if you believe in. But if you don't believe in a higher power, it's yourself. You don't trust yourself. You don't realize the power of who you are and what you're capable of. The one thing we cannot measure, and technology will never be able to do this, is the power of an individual, the power of a human. We cannot measure your potentiality. We can't measure your
Yeah.
limits. We cannot do that. And so to trust, don't, I would say don't give in to the fear. That's an easy statement. But when you do give it into fear, you don't trust that power, that uniqueness, and the infinite potentiality that exists in all of us. So tap in, tune in, and truly trust yourself along the journey, and know that all things always work out for the better.
Yeah. Great. That's according to Romans 8 and 28. Appreciate it, Vic. So just 10 seconds for me to share. Okay, great. So this is Andy of Andy's Personal Development and Vic Manzo in the breakout room saying thank you so much for sharing this time with us, for all your comments and your support. And please continue to take the opportunity to get involved with the content and the value of the content that we share with you. Visit Vic on his website and get all the information you need. Contact him for the support that you need in terms of the mindset you got to have for the success of the business that you desire to accomplish. See yourself in that vision, he says, and go for it. Until then, this is Andy of Andy's Personal Development saying so long, shalom, Godspeed, namaste. Next time, we'll be with you again. Take care.